Hey you guys, what's up? It's Rockados54 here, and welcome to my video of me talking about my picks for the best films of 2022. I'd say overall, 2022 was a very good year for movies, especially for horror. There was a lot of great horror movies released this year, and I'd say probably a lot of the ones that made my list, I'd say most of my picks for the best ones were horror. I really think that there was a lot of really great horror movies this year and a lot of really original and cool ideas. Let's get right into this. I am going to start off the list with some honorable mentions. It is a top 10 list, but I'm going to start off the list with the honorable mentions, which are Barbarian, Halloween Ends, RRR, Scream, The Sadness, Chippendale Rescue Rangers, Pearl, and Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Now, coming in at number 10 is Clerks 3. Now, if you guys don't know, Kevin Smith is my favorite director. The first Clerks is my fourth favorite movie of all time, and Mallrats is actually my fifth favorite movie of all time. I think Clerks 2 is honestly almost as good as the first one. I think Clerks 2 is an amazing sequel. So when I heard that Clerks 3 was finally happening, I was so happy because I know that this didn't happen for so many years because Jeff Anderson didn't want to do it, but he finally agreed to do it, and I am so happy he did because I think this was a great send-off. I really do. This movie was, this movie's a lot more emotional than you'd think it would be. Because once this gets to the climax of the movie, Kevin Smith can direct dramatic scenes really, really well. And that one scene in the first or second Clerks, if you've seen the movies, you know what I mean. Where they get into it, it's it's really well directed, and the same thing with the dramatic scenes in Chasing Amy. They're very well done. I really love seeing Kevin Smith kind of go into other territory. I mean, I'm one of the people who thinks that Tusk was a really good movie, his foray into horror. I think that when he goes into other territory, he does it really, really well, and the climax in Clerks 3 is no exception. I think that was a really well done scene. And not to mention, the movie's just super, super funny. I was laughing a lot during this. It was great to see Jay and Silent Bob again. Those guys, I don't think they'll ever get old. I just couldn't be more thankful and grateful that this exists and that I got to see it in the theater. I didn't think I was going to be able to get to because I thought there's no way it's going to come to theaters in my area, but it did. And to a Cineplex theater even, which was even more of a surprise given the area I'm in. But I really, really loved Clerks 3. This trilogy holds a special place in my heart, and it was a very bittersweet end to a really amazing trilogy, and I just love how they ended it off. Thank you, Kevin Smith, for everything. Coming in at number 9 is probably the most polarizing movie of this year, and that would be Blonde. I remember first hearing about this and being very intrigued that Netflix was actually going to allow an NC-17 rated movie. Now, I know that this is not accurate to her life at all, because I know that this is actually based on a book that's a fictional retelling of her life. I know that it's not an accurate story of her life, but I loved it nonetheless. Just as a movie, I was very, very entertained and engaged all throughout. And when it comes to a movie that's this long, 2 hours and 47 minutes, sometimes it can be a bit of a hard thing to do, but I loved watching all of this. It had a real strange dream-like quality to it that I really enjoyed watching. Ana de Armas is fantastic in this movie, easily a career best for her. Not to mention that ending hit me like a ton of bricks. Seriously, I was in such a depressed mood, and honestly even had kind of a bad dream afterwards, the night I saw this movie. The ending is very, very hard-hitting. It is going to stay with me for a long, long time. I know that not a lot of people liked this movie. If you go into it at least knowing that there's gonna be a little bit of a controversial stuff, and if you put aside the fact that it's not accurate to her life, I think you'll find at least something to enjoy in this, or even love it like I did. Coming in at number 8 is Everything Everywhere All at Once. Now, the best way I can describe this movie is it is literally a Cartoon Network original movie for adults. This is the closest we will ever get to Crank 3. It is pure, utter zaniness at its absolute finest. I cannot be like, there seems to be a kind of like this is something that Nathan came up with recently, a term, because I said to him, I'm like, there seems to be a lot of movies that really just embrace insanity and just go all for it, and they're very and they're well received, and some of them, especially in this movie's case, are incredibly critically acclaimed. Like, people are just embracing insanity, and Nathan dubbed it chaos cinema, which I think is a great term to describe it. And I think that, like, especially years down the line, when people are looking back at this time of movies, I think people are gonna, like, actually start using that term or something similar to it to describe that, like, to describe these kinds of movies. Because I was trying to think, like, what do I call this? Like, I love this style of filmmaking, but I just don't know what to call it. This movie is so insane and amazing. It's very visually stunning. It's crazy as hell. It's very, very funny too. Like, it just goes all out and doesn't hold back with anything. The performances were great, especially from Ke Huy Quan. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Who, if you guys don't know, he was Data in The Goonies and also Short Round from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. He was just great in this movie. It was so amazing to see him come back to acting after so many years, because he really gave a really great performance and brought so much life to a really good character. And he's even nominated for a Golden Globe. I hope he'll be up for the Oscar too, because that would be so amazing to see him win something like that after, like, not acting for a while. This movie is just absolutely insane. If you guys haven't seen this, just go and check it out. I do not think you'll be disappointed. It is just nuts. Coming in at number 7 is Look at Me, XXXTentacion. This was a documentary about XXXTentacion's life. I was a pretty big XXXTentacion fan around my, like, senior year of high school. I still remember the day he died, when I was right near the end of 11th grade when he died, and I remember it didn't seem real. I wasn't listening to him by that point, but it didn't seem real, because I just remember, like, it was one of those things that, like, you could not walk 2 feet in school without hearing somebody mention his name. You know, usually it was either trolling, saying that he sucked, or talking about, like, his abuse allegations. But still, like, watching this documentary gave me so much more perspective on just how popular he really was. Like, in 2017, when the album 17 came out, I had never heard of this guy. I didn't hear about him until, like, 2018. And then, like, it really shows, like, just how popular he was. Like, there were so many people that were fans of this guy before I had even heard of him. I will say, though, like, this is an incredibly well-made documentary. Not at all easy to watch. This movie will really, really disturb you. There is scenes of actual criminal activity and even self-harm in this documentary. It is definitely not an easy thing to watch. There are very harrowing accounts of real violence that took place. And, you know, like, because if you guys don't know, like, XXXTentacion was, you know, he definitely had a criminal past. You know, he had been to jail, he'd been arrested a number of times. There were allegations of him abusing his girlfriend and things like that. And it's really, really disturbing, like, hearing all the things that happened with him. But another thing I really liked about this documentary is, like, it never tries to paint X as, like, a perfect person, because he wasn't. No one is. He wasn't a perfect person, but what he was human. They don't lie. Like, the people interviewed in this documentary, they don't lie about how he was as a person. They are incredibly honest about the things he allegedly did, but also they show, like, footage from, like, near the end of his life where, because you could tell, like, X was an advocate for bettering yourself and, like, not letting your demons get the best of you. Like, right near the end of his life, he was doing a lot of good, like putting a lot of good out there in the world, like with the Helping Hand, was it the Helping Hand Challenge or the Helping Hand Movement? I don't quite remember. But, things like that. And, like, he was really starting to turn his life around, and then he died at a way too young age of 20. But yeah, if you are a fan of XXXTentacion, I think you will definitely want to check this documentary out. It is very good, but I will say it's not something that is going to be easy to watch whatsoever. Coming in at number 6 is Machine Gun Kelly's Life in Pink. Now, this year seemed to be the year for music docs for me, because I watched quite a few of them, and yeah, this one was pretty great. I have been a big fan of Machine Gun Kelly for about 3 years now. I actually got to see him on his Mainstream Sellout tour earlier in the summer, and it was a great show. It was amazing. I really loved it. Honestly, it kind of made my whole year getting to see him live, because I've been wanting to see him live for the last, like, 2-3 years. So this documentary, like, like shows the part in his life of, like, the creation of Mainstream Sellout, and like a little bit after that. It didn't get to the Mainstream Sellout tour, because I think he actually announced this documentary right near the start of the tour. It's not nearly as, like, disturbing as something like Look at Me, but it's still sad. Like, it really shows just how much of a toll that superstardom can take on a person. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I cried during this movie. Like, I'm not gonna, like, again, I don't like really spoiling anything in movies. There's one part in this kind of close to the middle with him where he's talking about certain things, and it just made me cry. Like, it was incredibly sad knowing what he had to go through. I kid you not, my heart did not stop pounding for, like, the entire first half hour of this movie. It was a very incredibly well made, very well put together documentary. There's some sad parts, but there was also some really good parts that I really enjoyed seeing. This guy's one of my favorite artists. I really enjoyed seeing this look into his life. And yeah, overall, it was just a really great documentary, which I think is definitely essential viewing if you're a fan of Machine Gun Kelly. I mean, if you're a fan and you haven't seen this, I'm kind of surprised that you haven't yet. But one thing that I'm also wondering is, throughout the documentary, it shows him, like, signing like, pictures of himself that he sent with, like, some merch items. I actually own one of those signed prints, and every time in the movie when it shows him signing those pictures, it made me think, was mine in there? And I'm never gonna know, but I'm still wondering, like, was the one I had, was it in the movie? Coming in at number 5 is Apollo 10 and a Half: A Space Age Childhood. Richard Linklater is one of my favorite directors, and I don't think I really had any doubt that this was going to be great, but it still surprised me. Like, I use this to describe Richard Linklater's movies more than I should, really, but it's very true. It's like, this movie is really like Waking Life crossed with Boyhood, because it does use, like, the rotoscoping animation technique that Waking Life and A Scanner Darkly uses. And the movie feels like Boyhood in the sense that it's just like a portrait of life. Like, this is just, like, one of the most relaxing movies ever. Like, it's so bright and just easy to watch, and just so wonderful just to watch. And it'll even, like, probably have you feeling nostalgic about your own life. It was a great tranquil experience to just sit and watch this thing. incredibly entertaining. It was well written, very nostalgic. Love the, I think I said this already, but I just love the way it was animated. Like, Richard Linklater is a guy who I don't think he's ever gonna slow down. I think he's a guy who's just gonna keep on making great movies. And, that 25-year project that he apparently has working on, that he's apparently been working on, I cannot wait to see that. I'm just gonna be, when the trailer for that thing drops, I'm gonna be so damn excited because I just cannot wait for that. I love Richard Linklater so much. Like, his movies, he just seems like a guy who really gets it. I feel like when it comes to like coming of age and the human experience, this is just a guy who gets it. And he's like made movies in different genres because he goes like he's done drama and he's done comedy and he does both really, really well. And it's just, I just love the guy, man. I really do. Coming in at number 4 is The Black Phone. Now, you heard me say earlier, I think that horror is in very good hands of people like Scott Derrickson, And, I've seen Sinister. I saw it a while ago, so I don't remember as much of it as I would like, but I definitely do need to rewatch it at some point, because I did really enjoy it when I first watched it. It was the opening scene is absolutely terrifying, but this is a whole other beast of a movie. It's very, very like dark. Like, even for like for a mainstream movie, this is quite dark. And he directs the movie with such a fierceness that is like, he's not afraid to show you the really bad stuff, like in the kid's home life, for example. I think those scenes especially were really, really well done. This is easily Ethan Hawke's best performance since possibly Boyhood. He is really great in this movie, and you don't even really see his face for the entire time. I don't recall Ethan Hawke ever being in a horror movie. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen First Reformed. I don't think I'd really count First Reformed as a horror movie. You guys can elaborate. I saw First Reformed like around the time it first came out, and I haven't seen it since, so maybe I just don't remember it that well. But also, the one who played the main character in this movie, he was really great. The performances were all great. The writing was just so incredibly smart. And, and the dad character in this, like, he's a real piece of shit at the start, but one thing I really liked is how, like, they made him more developed and more human, like, as the movie goes on, because, like, you see, like, how abusive he is to his kids in the beginning, and then as soon as his son goes missing, you think, oh no, he's just gonna be even worse. He's just gonna abuse his daughter even more. He's gonna blame his daughter for, his son disappearing. But then he starts to, like, it seems like it doesn't, like, make, like, a huge, like big deal on, like, the inside of his mind about it, but you can tell that the dad character is, like, realizing what he's doing. Like, he realizes that once his son is like now missing, he's like, I've already lost my wife, and he's like, I might lose my son too, and especially if I continue on this path, I'm probably gonna lose my daughter as well. So it's like it was a great, like, sense of, like, character building and a character arc to have someone like that recognize the error of his ways, in a way that isn't spoon-fed to the audience, which I like. This is a very, very original, very well done horror movie. Again, I just can't stress enough how great this year was for horror. Coming in at number 3 is X. This is one that I was very, very excited to see when it first came out, because I thought, like, first of all, the poster for it just looked so damn cool. But I was also excited because I had never seen a Ti West film before this, and now I've seen 3. I've seen this, Pearl, and Cabin Fever 2. And I think that's it. I want to say I've seen one more, but I don't think that's right. But I was also excited to see this because Kid Cudi is in this movie, and he was really, really good in this. I thought he was great, but Mia Goth was easily the standout here. She played 2 roles in this, and she did it incredibly well. Now, I will say I think her performance in Pearl was definitely better than this, because if you guys don't know, Pearl is actually a prequel to X. It is showing the old lady character in this, Pearl, when she was younger. That's what the movie Pearl's about, and it was really, really good. But I liked X quite a bit more. Like, I will say that, like, not even really, actually, maybe like the suspense. I was gonna say, like, not so much like during the real horror scenes, but more so for like the build up, like the suspense, like building up to all like the crazy shit happening. I really like felt nervous, and like my heart was like jumping a bit during a lot of these scenes. It was like, 'cause I was just like waiting for something to happen, and I was like, oh god, oh god, oh god. I was like, I feel like something like really bad's gonna happen. And this movie has a real like Texas Chainsaw Massacre inspiration and flavor to it. Like, it looks and feels like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. The kills in this are great. The performances are really good. Like, also, I just always have had like a fascination with the porn industry. And so, like, because like that's what the characters in this movie are doing. They're like setting out to make a porn film in rural Texas. And so like just like anything involving the porn industry, I've always just been so fascinated by. And so, you know, I always kind of like seeing that stuff in movies, and this was just a great overall movie. If you guys want a really good and really original slasher, I feel like I've said original way too many times in this video, but there was a lot of great movies this year, and I love that, you know, a lot of original movies seem to be coming out, and that Hollywood's not trying to, you know, fuck people over too much, at least from the way it seems to me. But anyway, X, watch it. It is great. Watch Pearl 2. Now, coming in at number 2 was easily my most hyped movie of the year, and maybe of all time. I don't know. Like, it was between this and Scream. They were like on equal footing with each other. But coming in at number 2 is Jackass Forever. I first started becoming a Jackass fan, I mean, like, Bad Grandpa was the first Blu-ray I ever bought when I was like 13. And that was around, and I saw the movie when I was 13 for the first time, and I loved it. But my parents would not let me watch Jackass for a while. Like, Bad Grandpa, they were fine with, but Jackass, they wouldn't let me watch for a couple years, because they're like, oh, like, we don't want you, like, trying any of that stuff. Like, we don't want you to, like, you know, like, think that it's okay to try that stuff, or, like, to get hurt doing something like that. And I remember, like, I kind of, like, snuck a little bit of the TV episodes before I was actually able to watch it, and I, like, felt guilty about it, and so I ended up, like, basically tattling on myself, and my mom was kind of disappointed in me for, you know, like, doing it when she told me not to. But then about a year or so after that, I decided I was going to watch the first movie for the first time, and my mom didn't say anything. I was just like, I think I'm going to watch Jackass, the movie, while I eat lunch today. And she didn't say anything, like, to, you know, to tell me no. So I was like, okay, guess I'm watching this. And that was around the time that I just became a huge Jackass fan. I've seen all of the movies at least twice each. They're really, really funny. I love them very much. When I was younger, I always swore that I thought 2 was the best one. I'm not entirely sure what I think is the best one now. I think the first one, in my opinion, might be the best. But I do need to watch 2 and 3 again. But this was so fucking good. Like, you'd think that, like, in this day and age that they would, like, slow things down because, 1, they're old, or 2, like, you know, with how, like, you know, PC everybody's trying to be. No, they don't slow down. They actually take some shit to new heights in this movie. It is just as disgusting and just as insane as the previous Jackass movies, sometimes even more so. I just pissed myself laughing in the theater for this. It was so much fun. One of the best theater experiences of my life. Like, hearing so many people in a theater laugh so hard. I've never seen an audience in a theater laugh at a movie this much ever. And I've also never seen an audience in a theater cringe this much at a movie ever. There's one scene in here that literally made like 3 or 4 people gag in the theater. I actually got worried that someone was gonna puke, but no one did. But I just absolutely love this thing. Like, I was so happy that I got the chance to see a Jackass movie in theaters because I had always wanted to, but Jackass 3 came out when I was like 9, so obviously I wasn't old enough, but this movie's just so insane. The franchise return we really needed, and I'm so happy to see the overwhelmingly positive reviews this got. The Jackass guys are just as amazing as they always were. You know, it kind of sucked to not have Bam in this movie, but I kind of understand why it happened. But yeah, an absolute banger of a time. Really loved Jackass Forever so much. Now, we actually have a tie for my number one movie of the year. I try to avoid these for, like, my number one pick, but thinking about these two over the last couple days, I just can't decide which one's better because they both have strengths in different ways, and I'm just so stumped on which one to choose. And the first one I'm going to bring up as part of the tie is one that I literally saw in theaters 3 days ago, and I was so surprised by how this was. So the first of this tie is Babylon. And, you know, this is Damien Chazelle's new movie, who did Whiplash and La La Land and First Man. I still haven't seen First Man, but I liked La La Land. I don't love it nearly as much as everyone else does, but I do think it's a good movie. But Whiplash is easily one of the best masterpieces of the 2010s. It is a phenomenal movie, tied with Boyhood for my favorite movie of that year. It is fantastic. And this, I would easily say, is his second best. I'm not kidding when I say, like, so, like, you know how I've said, like, Everything Everywhere All at Once was really crazy, and same with Jackass Forever? This movie is easily in the same contention as those for being just as insane. I am not kidding. Literally 2 minutes into this movie, Damien Chazelle lets you know exactly what you are in for, and there is no possible way you can tell where the hell this movie's gonna go. And you know, like this thing is over 3 hours long. It didn't get up to go to the bathroom once. This movie was so engaging and so just entertaining and amazingly crafted. The performances from everybody, especially Margot Robbie, were fantastic. She was really great. I loved seeing, like, you know, a bunch of different people in this movie. And the Tobey Maguire scene was also really good, really funny. Me and my friends were just howling with laughter throughout this entire thing. Like, some of the, like, you know, I don't know if this or Jackass Forever was the hardest I had laughed in a theater this year. It's pretty close, but I laughed very hard and very often during this movie because it is so funny and incredibly captivating and incredibly well written and directed. I mean, I don't see any reason why this won't get Oscar nominations, but it better get in there. Damien Chazelle better get in for director. I hope Margot Robbie gets in for actress. I hope this gets in for picture. It would be really nice to see Tobey Maguire get like a supporting actor in here too. Kind of a long shot because he's not in the movie for that long. It's kind of like Bradley Cooper in Licorice Pizza in that he's not in it for too long, but he steals the show. If you guys can still catch Babylon while it's in theaters, please do it. You will not regret it. Definitely one that's best to see with a crowd, as this movie is fucking hilarious. And then the other one that is part of this tie is one that really had a big effect on me, and that is Men. I was really surprised to see the just okay reception this got, because this movie is truly very scary. Like, this movie, like, has a style of horror that it's like, you know that, you know, and because this has happened to everybody at least once in their lives, you know that feeling when you see something in real life that you know you shouldn't see, that seems like it should only be in a dream, that you know just does not look right, you feel like you're in a dream, but you can't wake up, it's real? That's this movie. It does that so much, and it is so scary. I was honestly, at a lot of points, I was terrified while watching this. It is really, really scary. And you know, like I said with Babylon, like there's a lot of parts of this, like you won't be able to tell where this movie's gonna go. The ending to this thing had my jaw through the ground. I was just amazed and baffled at what I was seeing. And don't ask me how this got a 14A. And while we're on the subject, Jackass Forever got a 14A in theaters as well. Like, what the hell? But anyway, back to Men. This is such an insane movie. I know I've said that so many times in this video. I don't care. Like, insanity is being embraced in Hollywood, and I am all fucking here for it. And this movie is just so, like, it's so incredibly well directed. Like, one thing that sucks is I haven't seen Ex Machina yet, but I've seen Annihilation, which I really enjoyed. But I really need to see Ex Machina because I really enjoyed Annihilation and I loved this. Like, if you guys can give this a watch, I really, really hope that you get the same feeling and joy out of it that I did. Because there's really, every so often, a very special film comes along that really really strikes a chord with us, that really makes you grateful for film as an art form, reminds you why you appreciate and love movies. And this joins the ranks of movies like Titan, Borat 2, Waves, It, Eighth Grade, Hereditary, and Spring Breakers for me. In like, it really joins those films that are all in that list. This is an incredible movie that, again, I'm surprised got such a mixed reception, because I feel like this is ordinarily one that the general audience would have really liked. Well, maybe not like the super mainstream audience, but like the general film-loving audience would definitely have loved this, I feel like. So I'm kind of surprised to see all the mixed reviews it got. But anyway, guys, that is it for my list for the best films of 2022. Yes, this video is long. I don't know why they end up being this long. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for the video. Subscribe for more content. Please leave a like in the video if you enjoyed. And remember, you guys, whenever getting hit by a bull and getting a concussion, say no to drugs.